Have you ever been sitting there playing Pokemon Red or Blue and thought to yourself, I should play with Ash's team? Because back in the day, I definitely did this. And I vividly remember the exact moment where the idea struck me. I was sitting at home, eating a Pop-Tart, watching Pokemon the anime before I caught the bus to school. And keep in mind, this was right in the middle of peak Pokemania. It felt like everyone was talking about the games, everyone was collecting the cards, the toys. Pokemon was literally everywhere. It was even in your Happy Meals. But I never realized how much the show influenced the way you played the games. Because I remember watching Ash battle through the Indigo League that morning, and he had a bit of a weird team. I think we all remember the obvious members of Ash's team, but in this particular episode, I saw him pull out a Kingler, a Tauros, and a Muk. And my first thought was, why is he using these random Pokemon? But my next thought was, I kind of want to do a full playthrough as Ash. I wanted to see if his team could actually beat the game. And this is something I feel like a lot of us did, but no one really talked about. Now, you would eventually get Pokemon Yellow, which definitely catered to this exact fantasy, but honestly, this is where I think they got the idea for Yellow. I think they heard kids were doing this and mimicking the show. But the big problem with Red and Blue is that you couldn't get all three starters like Ash had, at least not without trading. And personally, I didn't know a single person in my friends group that was willing to trade out their starter. So to pull this off, you basically needed 2 Game Boys, 2 copies of the game, and a link cable. And unfortunately, my parents definitely weren't willing to shell out the money to do that back in the day. So I remember trying to roleplay as Ash the best I could. I'd only go with one starter, and I picked Charmander, obviously, because Charizard. I also remember spending a lot of time searching through the Viridian Forest trying to find Pikachu. He's actually weirdly tough to find throughout the Gen 1 games. But let's be honest, in-game, Pikachu was nowhere near as overpowered as he was in the show. Same with a lot of Ash's Pokemon. So every time I tried an Ash run back in the day, they'd usually start off pretty strong, and they'd usually end up the same way. I'd catch a few of Ash's Pokemon, I'd catch Pikachu, Butterfree, but eventually I'd get annoyed and go back to building your standard overpowered Gen 1 team. I'd usually give a Thunderstone to my Pikachu, turning him into a Raichu, or I would just have a friend trade me a high-level Pokemon so I could just breeze through the game. And just like that, I'd go back to playing the same way I always did, and my Ash runs would always fall apart. So this was always one of those unfinished childhood things for me. Something I always wanted to go back and do. So here's the story of me going back to Pokemon Red almost 30 years later to finally beat the game with Ash's team. It's a pretty nostalgic journey. Let's get into it. Okay, so before we dive into this run, quick note of what we're actually looking at here on screen. I'm playing a ROM hack called Recolored Red. What this does is it colors in the overworlds and the sprites the way that the Game Boy Color should have back in the day, so that everything looks a little brighter and richer. Some even say it looks like the Gen 2 graphics, but I promise you it's still the same Gen 1 game underneath. It's just colored in to make it a little bit more visually appealing. It kind of looks like a memory we all thought we had. I'll drop a link in the description if you want to check it out. But back to the run. Now, I also want to remind everyone that this was way before the days we optimized the fun out of games. Before you could just Google the perfect lineup, before you could pull up a YouTube video to find the best meta team, before we knew all the broken, overpowered moves in Gen 1. And sure, maybe you had the strategy guide back then, maybe you had a friend at school who claimed to do everything, or maybe you had that one friend that had the uncle that worked at Nintendo, and supposedly knew all the secrets and cheats. But a lot of the time back in these days, most people just picked Pokemon because they looked cool, or they just liked the way they looked. Or if you're like me, you were intrigued by the ones you saw on the show. If Ash used a Pokemon, I wanted to try it. If I saw a trainer using one, maybe I wanted to pick one up. If I saw Team Rocket using a Pokemon, I'd automatically think, yeah, this Pokemon's got a bad guy vibe to it. And if some rare Pokemon showed up in the show or the movies, I'd suddenly feel this compelling urge to go catch one. It added to the experience of this game so well. I really do kind of miss that. It was just a different era of gaming altogether. But alright, here's the rules. This is Pokemon Red only, not Yellow. And I know, Yellow is basically built for this idea. You start with Pikachu, you get access to all 3 starters, Team Rocket shows up. Yellow is practically designed to give you this exact roleplay experience. And I did think about doing this run in Yellow, but that wasn't my experience as a kid. I didn't play it till way later. I wanted to be a little bit more authentic with this. So I had Pokemon Red, so I wanted to do it with Red. And I was determined that I would only use the Pokemon that Ash actually caught in Season 1 of the anime. So my final lineup would be Charizard, Pikachu with no evolution, no Raichu, Pidgeot, Kingler, Tauros, and Muk. Now, some of you might be asking, why not Lapras? Well, Lapras actually came later. Lapras showed up in the Orange Islands episodes. Along the way, Ash actually caught a Butterfree and a Mankey, and sorry, spoiler alert, 30 years later, he eventually had to let them go. So I told myself I could catch them, but I'd have to do the same before I got to the Elite Four. So they could help us, they just couldn't help me complete the challenge. And to give myself a little extra challenge, I decided no items in battle. All my HMs had to stay in the team I was using. It made the whole thing a little bit more fun and challenging. So now that we've got the rule sets, it's time to gather Ash's team and set off on my journey to become the champion of Kanto. So every Gen 1 journey begins in the same place, Pallet Town. We name our character Ash, obviously, and we set off on our run. To kick off our journey, we obviously have to start with a little Super Nintendo in our room first, and I always kind of wondered what Ash was playing here. I'm going to say it was something like Earthbound. I'll definitely be doing a whole video on that down the road. A quick Secret of the Pros strategy here. If you walk over to the PC in Ash's room, there's actually a hidden potion you can withdraw. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more secrets and tips that everybody has known for 30 years now. But okay, here comes the first real decision. Picking the starter Pokemon. And like I said, we're going with Charmander because Charizard. And right on cue, Gary's going to troll us and grab a type advantage with Squirtle. But I want everyone to remember this decision by Gary, because I promise it's going to take a very important turn a little bit later in the run. A little foreshadowing, but this one's going to backfire on him. Then we get our first rival fight. I handle it with ease because I'm a pro gamer after all, and we're off. We're into our journey. It's time to start building Ash's team. First up, we got to grab a Pidgey, one of Ash's first Pokemon that he ever catches. It's an easy grab, and that's going to be our flyer for the whole run. Then we head over to Viridian Forest, and it's time to add one of the main characters of the show and one of the main characters of our team going forward, Pikachu, the face of the entire franchise. But here's the thing. What I always thought was weird is that for Pikachu being the face of the whole show, he's only got a 5% encounter rate in Gen 1. 5%. So if you don't sit here grinding for him, there's a real chance that you may have missed out on Pikachu early in your runs back in the day. That always made no sense to me. This is one of the most famous Pokemon on the planet, and I'm surprised he wasn't a little easier to get. I guess they obviously corrected that in later versions of the game, especially in Yellow. But the more I think back on it, maybe it was just a timing thing. Maybe when the show came out versus when the games were released, maybe it was just a little bit of a mismatch there. But then I thought you could also make the argument, because he was rare, it was kind of cool. Felt like you had to go hunting for Pikachu, which made it a little bit more special to catch. Either way, sorry to go off on a tangent. But obviously I'm going to do the grind. And it brought back some memories of doing this exact grind when I was a kid. And that same childhood excitement hits me 30 years later when Pikachu finally popped up. It brought me right back to being a kid. So now that we've got Charmander, a Pidgey, and a Pikachu, we've got about half of Ash's team so far. And it feels like the team is getting pretty strong. Head over to the quick second rival fight on the way to Indigo Plateau. Gary's snarky as always. He reminds us why we shouldn't be heading this way because we have no badges yet. I always thought it was cool that the game let you wander over here and figure out for yourself that you can't go anywhere unless you have the badges. But as we get into this fight, we realize we're a little underleveled. But Pikachu has the type advantage against the Squirtle. And Pidgey helps us clean things up here to win the fight. That's 2 for 2 against Gary, and I'm feeling pretty good about the team. Actually feeling pretty good about this run in general. Maybe this was going to be easier than I thought. Then we head back to Viridian Forest one more time because we got to grab a Caterpie. Ash caught one of these early in the show, so we obviously had to pick one up too. And now that we've got 4 Pokemon, the team is coming together. All the rival fights have gone well, and I realized the game kind of eases you into it. And it obviously hooks you. It's pretty addicting. The magic is obviously still there. So with all this confidence I built, I assumed that when I pulled up to Pewter City, I was going to roll right over and get my first gym badge. But things actually go a little differently. Because before we even get to Brock, you have to fight the trainer right before him. And I hit a bit of a wall. It was a struggle to beat the trainer's first Geodude. But then he threw out a level 11 Sandshrew, and it knocked me out. And my first death of the run hit me here. I had forgotten how brutal the first gym would be if you picked Charmander as your starter. There's no Pokemon that you can get to gain a real type advantage this early in the game. There's not a huge selection to pick from. So if you picked Charmander back in the day, you sneakily put the game on hard mode. So there's only one thing you can really do to gain an advantage in Gen 1, and that's grind. And I remember always doing it in this little patch of grass here south of Pewter City. So I head down there, and that's exactly what I did. The goal was to get my Caterpie to evolve to a Metapod, then to a Butterfree, because at level 12, Butterfree learns Confusion, and that's going to help against the ground types. So I kept grinding, hitting tackle, tackle, tackle over and over again for a little over 2 hours, and finally I got Butterfree to get Confusion. But somewhere in that hour or two of mashing tackle, it kind of sank in that this was going to be a harder run than I thought. I was going to have to do some real critical thinking here and dig deep for some strategy. So I brushed up on my type advantages and figure out all the little edges I could potentially get here. But I also started to think about why I maybe gave up on some of these runs as a kid. This is possibly the start of where my runs dropped off. But again, this time I was determined to complete this run. So I went back over to the first gym for a second time. I roll over that first trainer, and I definitely overplanned for Brock. I spammed Sand Attack with Pidgey until Geodude couldn't land a hit on me, since all he's got is Tackle available to him. Did the same thing with Onix. I even threw a couple Growls in with Pikachu to drop his attack. Probably a little overkill, but I made quick work of Brock and got my first gym badge. 1 gym down, 1 death on the board. I've got 1 of 8 badges now, and this Ash run feels like it's in full effect. Next stop, Mount Moon, and then to take on Misty. So after Brock, we make our way east towards Mount Moon. I spent a stupid amount of time just south of Mount Moon searching in the grass because I was convinced there was a Mankey here. Sadly, there isn't. This is something they added into the yellow version years later. I think the developers added him here to make the Brock fight a little easier, give you the fighting type advantage a little earlier, and give you some more options with Pokemon. I sadly completely forgot about that. I guess it really shows memories do kind of blur together.
Guess I forgot.
But before I go into Mount Moon, I always stop by to see the vendor that sells you Magikarp. I always thought it was cool how Magikarp seemed like a little bit of a ripoff, but actually evolved into one of the most powerful Pokemon in the game. And this is where I would usually deviate from my Ash run. I typically would buy the Magikarp and start working towards the Gyarados, but obviously, to stay true to the Ash run, we're going to skip that temptation. I pretty much blast my way through Mount Moon, and I don't use any repels here because Pikachu can easily level up because his Thunder Shock is super effective against all these Zubats. And there are plenty of them in here for me to grind on. We also make pretty easy work of these Team Rocket grunts. The scientists are pretty easy, the hikers are pretty easy as well. And the final scientists, we beat them, we grab our fossil that we're never going to use. I picked the Dome fossil for the record. We finally arrive in Cerulean City. I go north to Nugget Bridge for our next rival fight. And once again, it's not even close. Common theme here, I'm tending to dominate Gary. Our Charmeleon evolved in Mount Moon, so he's getting pretty strong. He takes out Gary's Pidgeotto pretty easily. Then Gary throws out an Abra, which isn't much of a threat yet. Obviously Gen 1 Psychic types become pretty powerful, but all he can really do is teleport now. So my Charmeleon rolls him over too. We clean up Rattata, and so when Squirtle comes out, I swap in Pikachu, and obviously delete him again because of the type advantage. That's now 4 for 4 against Gary. Smell you later, Gary. I blast through the rest of Nugget Bridge with ease. I go up to Bill's house, rescue Bill, and we get our SSN ticket. So now it's time to head over to Misty. And the team is starting to feel pretty powerful at this point. I obviously have the type advantage once again against Misty because I have Pikachu. I start off using Pidgeotto to do my Sand Attack strategy. It makes Staryu miss me a bunch of times. Then I swap in a Pikachu. He 2-shots Staryu. I get a little worried about Starmie. The sprite is actually awesome in Gen 1. It just looks so overpowered. I actually think Starmie is a very underrated Pokemon overall. But it's no match for my Pikachu because again we hit it with 2 Thunder Shocks that are both super effective and we beat Misty pretty easily. This is much more simple compared to Brock due to the type advantage. I always remember as a kid wishing that after I beat Brock and Misty, they could follow us through the rest of our journey. Now, obviously the technology wasn't there yet on Game Boy, but I'd always imagined they'd start to follow me anyway. I thought it would have been pretty cool if they could somehow join your team. As we make our way to Vermilion City, we stop just south of Cerulean City because you can actually find Mankey north of the Pokemon Daycare Center. And I actually had to look this up to make sure I didn't waste a ton of time here once again. But we pick up Mankey, add him to the team. Excited to have a fighting type on the team now. Karate Chop is weirdly overpowerful, so it's another great addition to the team. Along the way, my Pidgey evolves into a Pidgeotto. Once we arrive in Vermilion City, we head over to the SSN. We battle through it. Pikachu again does a lot of leveling up here, mainly because there's a lot of water types on the ship. So he's becoming stronger. And of course, we run into Gary, our next rival fight, and his team's definitely getting stronger at this point. I started to get a little worried because I want to keep that death counter low, and I feel like he's going to creep in with some overpowered Pokemon at some point. We send out our Pikachu first, and he gets the type advantage on Pidgeotto. He then sends out Eradicate, which has Hyper Fang, which is a pretty scary move. But our Charmeleon is very strong, and Ember takes him out. Kadabra definitely scares me a little bit now that he's leveled up, because I know how broken the Gen 1 Psychic moves are. But he doesn't really do much to us either. He only has Confusion at this point. I think it's when he gets Psychic is when he becomes really dangerous. And for those who don't know, Psychic types were pretty broken in Gen 1, because the special stat counts for both attack and defense. They didn't separate these two to a later version of the game, so it basically makes them very bulky defensively against special moves, but it also makes their special attacks very overpowered. It's definitely why they corrected this in later versions. But Pidgeotto comes in here, cleans things up, and now we're 5-5 against Gary. We go up to the captain's quarters, we rub his back, we get cut, and we can finally cut away that tree and get to our third gym and face Lieutenant Surge. The trainers before Surge are pretty easy. The gym puzzle here, we have to hit the buttons under the trash barrel. That's actually the challenging part. It actually still stumps me to this day. I guess in theory, when you find one of the switches, there's one guaranteed to be adjacent to that one that you found, but I never can seem to figure this out. But once I brute force my way through this puzzle, it's time for the showdown with Surge. Now Surge's team is pretty strong. He's got a Voltorb, a Pikachu, and a Raichu. Pikachu and Raichu both have Thunderbolt, making them pretty tricky. We take down Voltorb pretty easily with Mankey, and his Pikachu actually almost takes us out, drops us down to 1 health. But luckily we get a Karate Chop off to take him out. But when Raichu comes out, he just tears my team apart. He basically one-shotted the majority of my team with this Thunderbolt. He one-shots Pidgeotto, quickly knocks out Mankey, one-shots Butterfree. Charmeleon comes out, he gets 2-shotted. This Raichu is definitely the strongest Pokemon we'd seen all run up into this point. And I only had Pikachu left, and I really think that the death counter is going to go up here. But my Pikachu is level 28. Remember, he gained a ton of XP from Mount Moon in the SSN. As Pikachu and Raichu face off, I do have a couple levels on him, but I'm thinking Thunderbolt is going to one-shot me. So I hit him with a couple Swifts. That also gives me a guaranteed hit. He hits me back, and my health drops to half. And I'm worried that one move can now finish me. But because I land a crit, I actually knock Raichu out. So that's right, my Pikachu takes down Surge's Raichu, just like in the show. And I know this might feel like it's scripted, but genuinely this is what happened. And it brought a gigantic smile to my face of how this played out. This is why I did these runs. This was the fun here. And if you haven't seen the episode that I'm talking about, the whole plot is that Ash refuses to evolve his Pikachu into a Raichu for the extra stats. That's the whole episode. There's definitely a lesson in there somewhere. And here I am playing the game 30 years later doing the exact same thing with my Pikachu. This Ash run couldn't have played out any better. Again, it's hard to describe the amount of joy this brought me. This is the exact fantasy I had been chasing since I was that Pop-Tart eating kid watching Ash battle in the Indigo League back in the day. And Pikachu grows to level 29. He's now one of our strongest Pokemon. Once again, just like Ash, we escaped Surge without adding another death to the counter, and I came out of this feeling like a kid again. I don't recall exactly when I dropped out of the Ash runs as a kid, but given how hard this fight is, I started to think maybe this is when I did it, because the Dugtrio cave is right nearby. I think I would always just go over there, pick up a Dugtrio, and he's immune to the electric types, so I think this is where those Ash runs started to break up and fall apart. But not this run. We've got a 3rd gym badge, the team is feeling strong, and now it's time to go tackle the rest of the gyms. So next I head over to Rock Tunnel. And in my mind, I think I have this big brain play here, because if you remember my rule, I have to use all my HMs on my actual Pokemon team. So I decide I'm not going to waste a move slot and not teach anyone Flash. I'm just going to navigate through the whole cave in the dark. This is yet another time where my little rule set's going to add a little bit of an extra challenge. So I fumble around in the dark here for a little over an hour. I basically follow the edge of these rocks, and luckily you can actually see the ladders down if you find them. But as you're navigating through the dark, you'll bump into random trainers and wild Pokemon. It kind of makes you lose your train of thought a little bit as you're navigating through here. Still, luckily in Gen 1, it's not too hard. I know in later versions of the game they make it completely pitch dark, so it makes it much harder. I finally crawl my way out of the rock tunnel and make my way to Lavender Town. As soon as the Lavender Town music hits me, it kind of freaks me out. Brings back this eerie, nostalgic feeling that I can't really quite describe. I'll turn out the music so you can take a listen. I'm sure you all remember it, but definitely creeped me out as a kid. I head over to the Pokemon Tower for my next rival battle. And quick aside, there's a pretty dark theory about why Gary is in this tower in the first place. The theory goes is that Gary's Raticate died and he's actually here to bury it. Because you'll notice in this battle, Raticate isn't actually on his team anymore. Kind of a dark theory, and may have to talk about some of the darker themes of Pokemon in a later video. But here's the fight. Gary sends out a Pidgeotto, I bring in Pikachu, I've got 5 levels on it, so a couple Thundershocks knocks him out. He sends out his new teammate Growlithe. It makes sense he picked up a Growlithe because they exist in the area. Pikachu hits it with a Thunderbolt, one-shots it. He sends out an Execute. I swap in Charmeleon for the type advantage. Execute tries to put Charmeleon to sleep, but it misses and I hit it with an Ember. It's obviously super effective and knocks him out. Then he sends out Kadabra. And you can see the Gen 1 Psychic threat starting to ramp up a little bit now. Confusion knocks out my Charmeleon. It also knocks out my Butterfree. And every time Butterfree gets knocked out, it's a little gentle reminder that he doesn't really scale very well mid to late game. We're eventually going to have to let him free just like Ash did. But Pikachu comes in, cleans up Kadabra, then Gary swaps in Wartortle, I Thunderbolt him, and we get yet another win against Gary. How's that Squirtle counterpick going now, Gary? And I remain undefeated against my rival. As I climb the rest of the tower, I realize I can't do this part yet. I kind of forgot about this, but you need to go get the Sylph Scope to amass the ghosts. And I'm reminded by this terrifying ghost sprite. These genuinely freaked me out as a kid. They're super eerie. Yet another reason why I think Lavender Town felt so haunted back in the day. So I decided to leave the tower and make my way to Celadon City. In Celadon, I quickly pick up Fly, teach it to Pidgeotto. Definitely an upgrade from the current moveset. Great flying move I can add into his toolset. It's definitely an upgrade for him. Definitely one of the more helpful HMs in the game overall, both in battle and outside of battle. Then it's time to head over to Erika's gym. I think most people have probably seen this before, but there's this creepy guy peeking in the window of an all-girls gym. I always thought it was a weird little detail to put in the game. I guess it's meant to be a bit of humor, but this is supposed to be a kid's game. Anyway, my plan here is pretty simple. Charmeleon's Ember is going to hard counter the entire grass-type gym. And he does just that. He sweeps all the trainers here and soaks up a bunch of XP to get a couple levels. Then I get to Erika. She's got a decent team of 3. She opens up with a level 29 Victory Bell. My strategy is to soften up her Pokemon with the rest of my team first, then sweep everything with Charmeleon. Butterfree softens up Victory Bell a little bit, then Pidgeotto comes in, uses Fly to get the knockout. She sends out a Tangela. I use 2 Flies. That takes out Tangela, no problem. So we're in really good shape in this fight. Vileplume comes out, pretty powerful, and Pidgeotto is getting pretty low, so it's time to bring in our sweeper, Charmeleon. Hit it with an Ember. Vileplume can't do much back to me, so I hit it with another Ember, and just like we drew it up, we win, and we get our 4th gym badge. Now it's time to go deal with Team Rocket. So I pick up a coin case and head over to the game corner, because if you remember, that's where Team Rocket's hideout is hidden. And I will confess, I do get a little sidetracked by these slot machines. I told myself I was just going to play a few, like the story always goes, and I actually sat there for way too long. It's kind of addicting. I always wondered if there's a secret about these slot machines. There were some theories back in the day, one of them being the lost keys that the guy mentions, were the keys to the truck near the SSN. Another theory I would always read about is that one of the slot machines here that you could randomly get would just keep winning over and over again. And there's a way you could use this boosted slot machine to get a ton of coins to win the prizes. I think the whole idea came from the fact that there was a couple states you could see the slot machines in. One low, you'll never win. One medium, you sometimes win. And one, you will get some boosted. But I don't know if that's 100% confirmed, so don't take my word for it. I eventually pull my way from obsessing about the slot machines and head into the hideout. The things I remember most about this hideout is these little arrow tiles that send you spinning and the little puzzle and the maze you have to figure out. It's a fun little mini game. But once I figure that out, I make my way up to Giovanni, and I have my showdown with the Rocket Boss for the first time. And before I reach him, Mankey evolves into a Primate. It's kind of perfect timing. He's a little bulkier now, he's going to hit a little harder, which is definitely going to help me out, because if you remember, Giovanni's got ground and rock types. So Primate's going to definitely earn his spot on the team right now. I open with Pidgeotto. He uses the classic sand attack strategy, and it made me think back to where the strategy started, back when I fought Brock for the first time. But then I bring in Primate, and just like we drew it up, he uses Dig and one-shot Sonics. Giovanni then sends out a Rhyhorn, hit it with another Dig, get another one-shot. He sends out Kangaskhan, and yeah, this sprite is awesome. I love Kangaskhan. I think it's one of the underrated Pokemon in the game. The sprite is so cool. Too bad you could only get it in Safari Zone, which caused it to be such a grind. More on that later, trust me. Either way, Primate knocks him out too, and helps us sweep Giovanni pretty clean. And I love the feeling of reward I get for sticking with Ash's team here and following this little role play. And as I'm deep into my Ash run, a little smile comes on my face again, because I'm finally not bailing from this Ash run, and I'm really getting to the spirit as role-playing as Ash. We grab the Silph Scope, and now it's time to head back over to the Ghost Tower. I continue my journey and battle my way up the Ghost Tower, fighting through a ton of Ghastlies along the way. And a question kept coming as I was doing my playthrough on my stream. I had a ton of people asking, why not grab a Haunter? Ash had a Haunter, right? But let me fact check that really quickly and explain why I didn't catch one. In the show, Haunter just followed Ash around. He essentially became friends with it, and it did help him beat Sabrina in the show, but it was never in a Pokeball, so in my mind it was never truly part of Ash's team. So I didn't count it, and I didn't grab myself one. I wanted to stay true to Season 1 of the anime and only catch Pokemon that were technically caught by Ash in Season 1. So while Ash had Haunter for the plot of the show, he didn't truly have it in my mind. I was trying to follow all these rules hard and fast. We finally make it to the top of the tower, we rescue Mr. Fuji, he gives us a Poke-Flute, which means we can finally move the Snorlaxes that are blocking the routes down to Fuchsia City. And with the tower behind us, there's one thing I have to do before anything else. It's time to release Butterfree. This was always coming. If you remember way back at the start, I made a rule that I could catch Butterfree and Mankey, but at some point before the Elite Four, I had to release them both. After all, this is exactly what Ash did. And if you grew up watching the show, you probably know the moment I'm talking about. There's an episode called Bye Bye Butterfree where Ash releases his. It's one of the sadder episodes in the early anime. Some of us as a kid maybe even cried watching that. And here I am reliving this trauma 30 years later. It's kind of fitting that it happened here in Lavender Town. This whole town in the game is built around loss. Butterfree, you helped me get this run off the ground. I'll never forget you. You're an awesome friend. But it's time. Bye-bye, Butterfree. Okay, when one good thing ends, it's time to bring in the next. So we bust out our Super Rod and catch Krabby and add him to the team. And I'll be honest, I've never used Krabby in the game before, so this is going to be new territory for me. Should be interesting to see how we build him up and make him become strong. Then we move on to Snorlax. Sadly, Ash didn't catch a Snorlax in the show, so we just push the big guy aside and keep grinding our way down towards Fuchsia City. And when we enter Fuchsia City, we prepare to go in the Safari Zone, because this is where I plan to add another key member of my team, Tauros. Now, Tauros was insanely hard to catch in Gen 1. A lot of people may have forgotten this one, and a lot of people probably didn't even catch a Tauros back in the day. And that's because Safari Zone was notorious for having some brutally rare Pokemon that were extremely hard to catch, mainly due to the mechanics. You go in, you have a limited amount of steps, you have rocks and bait, so the rare encounter rates mixed with the janky mechanics made them extremely hard to catch. I actually did some research and a little field testing for this run. And what I dug up was that Tauros sits at around a 1 to 4% encounter rate, depending on the zone that you're in Safari Zone, making him one of the rarest Pokemons inside the zone. And I tracked all my stats on stream. I tracked every encounter, every Tauros I saw, how long it took me, how much money I spent, and this was a grind, I'm not gonna lie. I saw over 600 Pokemon, I ran into 14 total Tauros, I spent several hours in here, and it took me 20 full runs to finally catch one. This grind really made me think that this is probably where my Ash runs broke down as a kid, because there's no way I was sitting here grinding away for Tauros for hours, even though I had a ton of time back then. So if my runs didn't fall apart earlier in the journey, they definitely fell apart right around here. But again, this time I was determined, and it finally happened. Here's my actual live reaction the moment I caught Tauros on stream. 2, let's go! Go! Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, let's go! Let's go! Oh my god. Oh my god, he got him. Oh my god, let's go. Sorry, I gotta be quiet. My family's gonna come in here and punch me. I just screamed. Oh my gosh, let's go. That grind was so brutal, and it made such a good story. I actually did a whole separate video on that. I'll drop a link in the description if you want to check it out. But after catching that Tauros, I was obviously pumped. I've always heard that Tauros was secretly a competitive monster with the right moveset, and now he's finally on my team for this Ash run. I was really pumped to use him going forward. So with Tauros caught, my team is nearly complete. Charmeleon, Pidgeotto, Pikachu, Primeape, Krabby, and Tauros. And with that grind over, there's only one thing left to do. Time to go take on Koga. I'm feeling pretty good walking in. I just caught one of the rarest Pokemons in Gen 1. And he's on my squad now. He's only level 28, so he can't really do much yet. But still, I'm happy he's here. This gym is very memorable because of the hidden glass walls you have to navigate. Though in the Gen 1 games, it's pretty easy to make your way around because you can see these little dots here. It's not even close to as tough as a Surge puzzle. I always thought the Koga sprite was awesome. That ninja look was actually pretty cool. As the fight starts, I send out Primeape first. He one-shots his coughing with a karate chop. Koga then sends out a Muck, and seeing Muck on screen reminds me how badly I want to add one to the team. As soon as we can add him, we will. I see him using Minimize against me, and it really gets me thinking about the strategies we can use with Minimize later on in the run. More on that later. I hit it with the Dig, knock it out. He sends out a Coughing, use Dig again, he's gone. Then he sends out a level 43 Wheezing, and after a couple hits back and forth, he just self-destructs. So Primeape gets knocked out, but he basically solos Koga, and he's the hero of this gym again. And we receive our 5th badge. And here's the ironic part. I just spent hours in the Safari Zone, over 20 runs, 600 Pokemon grinding for that Tauros, and I didn't even get to use him in this fight. Again, still, he's only level 28, so he just kind of hung out on the bench. But don't worry, Tauros. Your time is coming later on in this journey. So next we head over to Saffron City. And this is the part of the journey where we hit the Karate Dojo. It's an unofficial gym where you can get Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan, and I figured this is the perfect spot for Primeape and Tauros to grind some levels. So they take on most of the Black Belt trainers here. And there's a reason this place matters for the Ash run, because in the show, this is where Ash takes Primeape to a fighting tournament. He actually wins it. And then when he leaves, he actually leaves Primeape behind with the fighting trainers. And that's the last we ever see Primeape. So as we clean up the final Karate Master and beat Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan, I'm going to do exactly what Ash did. Which means it's time to say bye to Primeape. And this one hurts a little bit, mainly because Primeape has become a strong member of the team. But if you remember back at the start, The rule is going to be the same for Butterfree. I could catch Butterfree and Mankey, but I had to let them both go before I reached the Elite Four. Just like Ash did. But again, Primeape got strong. He's level 38, he soloed Koga, he swept Giovanni at the Rocket Hideout. He's been one of the best Pokemon on the team. And he definitely could have helped me out during the Elite Four. So letting him go is genuinely going to set me back, but I've got to stay true to the challenge. The rules are the rules. And again, it's fitting. Ash let him go right here, so that's exactly what we're going to do. See you later, Primeape. You've earned your spot, and I'll never forget you. You're going to enjoy staying with these fighting trainers. So the team drops to 5. But the good news is, I quickly picked up a Muck in the Pokemon Mansion. So I'm going to pull him out of the box and add him into the team. I'm excited to use this one because I think there's some fun strategies we can use with Muck. Again, it does feel weird that Ash had a Muck back in the day. It's kind of random. We're about to go fight Team Rocket in Slipco, but it felt like Muck belongs on Team Rocket, so I always thought it was interesting that the creators of the show put Muck on Ash's team. As we head into Silphco, Team Rocket has taken over the whole building. So we grind through all the floors, use the teleporters to jump around. And midway through, I had actually forgotten all about Gary hiding in one of these floors here. So he kind of caught me off guard, and his team is getting pretty strong now. He opens with Pidgeot, and I send out my Tauros. My Tauros is level 37 now that we've grinded up some levels, and he's definitely coming into his own. A couple body slams take down his Pidgeot. We handle his Growlithe pretty quickly as well. Tauros also makes quick work of his Execute. I can see why the competitive people like Tauros. The speed stat is definitely giving him an insane crit chance. Then he sends out Alakazam, which scares me for a second because this is one of the Gen 1 powerhouses, until I remember something. Normal moves can knock out Alakazam pretty easily because remember, Psychic types are bulky because that special stat applies to both attack and special defense, but Body Slam is a normal type and it crits. So I hit it with the Body Slam, it crits, and it one-shots him, and Tauros just keeps rolling and sweeps the rest of Gary's team. All that Safari Zone grinding is definitely starting to pay off right here. I can definitely see why the competitive scene is obsessed with Tauros. And mind you, still undefeated against Gary. What looked like to be a scary encounter turned out to be another pretty easy win. We pushed to the top of the building and we hit Giovanni for the second time. And with Tauros rolling, I'm feeling pretty good. He knocks out his Nidorino. He two-shots his Kangaskhan with the Body Slams. And when Rhydon comes out, I run out of Body Slams because I've been using it so much. But the Strength move does just as well. Tauros takes out his Rhydon. Then I use 2 Strengths on Nidoqueen. And we take her down as well. And we beat Giovanni for a second time. We grab our Master Ball on the way out, which we'll almost certainly never use. And now it's time to head over to Sabrina's Psychic Gym. We go through all the trainers and figure out the gym puzzle. And when we get to Sabrina, again, I'm a little concerned because of how broken the Gen 1 Psychic moves are. Because here's the thing. After the Gary fight, I realized I don't need a Gen 1 powerhouse to match Alakazam. I just needed normal moves. As we start the fight, Sabrina comes out with the Kadabra. I lead with Charmeleon, hit it with the Slash. Another normal move. It crits and it one-shots his Kadabra. She sends out a Mr. Mime, which I haven't seen a Mr. Mime all run. Pretty cool sprite. I always remember Ash's mom had one in the show. But I hit it with 2 slashes, knock it out. Then she sends out a Venomoth. Slash chews through it as well. 3 hits and knocks him out. Charmeleon's been carrying this whole fight. Then comes Alakazam. And again, this is the one that I'm always afraid of because this is in the S tier of Pokemon in Gen 1. I hit Slash again, but then she uses the Broken Recover move and it heals it back to full health. Then she uses Psywave to take out Charmeleon. So now it's on you, Tauros. I bring him out, I hit it with an Earthquake, and that's enough to finally drop Alakazam. And I obtain my 6th gym badge. And we climb over the Psychic wall that I thought was going to be an issue during this run, but it turns out Ash's team is pretty well positioned with all these normal moves on my team. My team is nearly complete. We just need a couple more evolutions to reach our final form, and we're very, very, very close. So it's time to go get our final badges so that we can head over to the Elite Four. So I'll be completely honest with you, I lost the gameplay footage from my surf from Fuchsia City to Cinnabar Island. I guess it's kind of fitting. Maybe it was the magic legendary powers of Articuno and the Seafoam Islands, or maybe the power of the missing no lurking on Cinnabar that wiped my footage. We'll go with that. I think that kind of helps me stay true to the Gen 1 lore, but no idea where it went. But here's what matters from that trip. My Krabby evolved into a Kingler, and that definitely helps my plan for Cinnabar, because it's Kingler's time to shine. He's my main water type, he's the one carrying Surf, and I'm walking into a fire gym, so needless to say, he should hard counter everything in here. And remember, I caught Krabby saying I've never used it on any run before, so this is totally new territory for me. I found out he even uses this move called Guillotine, that's just a complete random chance for you to knock out the enemy in a one-shot hit, but it very rarely happens. A little bit of a mean move, but I figured it'd be fun to play around with. But Surf is way more overpowered than I remember. Kingler just starts erasing every trainer on the way to Blaine. And quick note for later, I'm actually holding Charmeleon at level 40 on purpose, because if I let him learn Flamethrower at level 42 before evolving, it lets him get it 4 levels earlier than Charizard normally would at 46. Yeah, I'm definitely overthinking this one, but it did give me access to a very powerful move a little bit earlier, so hopefully that helps us out in the run. We face off against Blaine, he opens up with a 42 Growlithe, and you can start to feel the level creep happening here. My Kingler's only level 41, but we've got Surf and the type advantage, so it nearly one-shots the Growlithe. So 2 shots to knock him out. Then he sends out his Ponyta next, hit it once with Surf, Vice Grip it to clean it up. Then he sends out Rapidash, and it's a gorgeous sprite. Some of the Pokemon that you haven't seen up until this point, when you see their sprites for the first time, it's definitely an amazing feeling. A wave of nostalgia hits me. It stomps and flinches my Kingler, but then it follows up with a Tail Whip. Wrong move because you probably could have killed me here. I hit it with a Surf plus a Bubble Beam, and it takes it down. Kingler learns Crab Hammer too. A lot of water moves stacking up on this guy now, but we figure we'll take it. One of the annoying parts about Gen 1 is it doesn't tell you what these moves do, so sometimes when you would replace moves and not have any idea what you're adding. You actually need a strategy guide to go look things like this up. Then Blaine sends out a level 47 Arcanine. Another side note, Arcanine was apparently supposed to be a legendary in the original. If you read his Pokedex entry, it actually says legendary. I think it definitely would fit in with the legendary dogs in Gen 2. I feel like this is where they got the inspiration for the legendary dogs. Such a legendary looking sprite for sure. But Kingler hits it with the Surf, almost takes it out. But Arcane is bulky enough to survive that, and he knocks Kingler out, stopping my sweep. So I bring in my backup ace, Tauros, hit it with an Earthquake, and that's enough damage to drop the Arcanine. And I get my 7th gym badge. We are now 7 out of 8, and we are getting very close. And now another awesome moment. As I surf back up from Cinnabar Island to Pallet Town, Charmeleon learns Flamethrower, and I decide to finally let him evolve into a Charizard. One of my favorite Pokemon of all time, and I know there are probably a lot of you out there that feel the same way about Charizard. And it's all kind of too perfect that he evolves here as I'm looping my way back to Pallet Town, because it's almost a full circle moment. Way back at the start of this run, I picked Charmander for one reason, because of Charizard, and now after this whole journey, I'm coming back home, and he evolved right before I hit home. So I go back to Pallet Town, say hi to Mom quick, tell her I'm doing alright. We've obviously come such a long way. And I always thought it was genuinely clever design how Red loops you back here through Pallet Town before you get to your final gym. As a kid, I never got why the game lets you wander up to Indigo Plateau so early when you didn't have any badges, and they just didn't let you in, they denied you. I also wondered why the first gym that you encountered was closed and locked the whole game. But coming back here and seeing this again 30 years later, it's kind of obvious. The game walks you full circle. You get a minute to reflect on your hometown, reflect on your entire journey, right before the final stretch into the end game. It makes complete sense now. This is just another example of just amazing game design and why I think there was so much magic back in gaming in this era. So with that, it's time for our 8th gym. Viridian City Gym is finally open, and of course it's Giovanni. I guess Giovanni just loves teleporters. He seems to install them in all the hideouts and takeovers that he has. But we push through the little maze and reach him for the 3rd and final time. And this fight again is going to be the Kingler show because of the type advantage. But I open with Pidgeotto, trying to get him some levels before the Elite Four. I realize that he's way under-leveled compared to his Rhydon. Again, the level gap is creeping in here. I feel like that's going to get even worse when I try to face the Elite Four. Pidgeotto can't do much because of the level difference, so I switch to Kingler. Surf quickly takes out Rhydon. Then he sends out a Dugtrio. It's a fun little callback. Dugtrio is always the Pokemon I used to grab before the Lieutenant Surge fight, but Surf one-shots Dugtrio with no problem. Then he sends out Nidoqueen. And I taught Kingler Blizzard, so I figure I'd try it. Pretty strong move, it actually freezes her solid. Ice moves were so broken in Gen 1. The freeze mechanic felt just unfair. And then I used Crab Hammer to knock her out. Nidoking next, and I'm just admiring the sprite again. Another one of my all-time Gen 1 favorite Pokemon. This sprite looks so awesome. Nidoking was usually always on my teams. But then I decided to use Blizzard again. It's super effective. He wastes a full turn on guard spec, and I use Crab Hammer. It crits, and it knocks Nidoking out. Then he sends out a level 50 Rhydon. Definitely the most powerful Pokemon I've seen up until this point. But Surf one-shots it, super effective, and Kingler gets the sweep against Giovanni. When I first caught Krabby, I thought he was going to be one of the weak links of the team. And now he just soloed the final gym. This is definitely a part of playing through as Ash's team that I definitely didn't expect. This is the type of stuff that I think makes this game infinitely replayable. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of went into this Ash run thinking he had a weak team, and they keep proving me wrong. Seems like he knew exactly what he was doing. With the 8th gym badge in hand, the final badge, I feel a real sense of pride here. I've completed the Ash run as far as badges go. I've got all 8 now. It's been a long journey. I love how the game looped me back. I love how I'm learning new things and playing with new Pokemon that I've never played before. It's just a ton of fun. But the badges have never been the finish line. They simply unlock it. What's next is the real thing. It's time to go and challenge the Elite Four and become the champion of Kanto. And I want to brag quickly. I only have one death up to this point. But let's go face the game's final test. As I make my way through Victory Road, there's something I never noticed before that kind of jumps out at me. This is the first place where trainers actually have mixed teams. The whole rest of the game, trainers for the most part basically stick to one type. The hiker has rock types, the scientists have electric types, sometimes the bird keepers only have birds, but in here they actually mix it up. I guess it's kind of appropriate because it's supposed to be trainers going to the Indigo Plateau, so that's probably why. One trainer even actually has all 3 starters. I wonder how he pulled that off. He must have had some good friends or 2 Game Boys. The trainers are not the hard part at all. For some reason, I struggle with the rock pushing puzzle and the hidden switches. You probably noticed the pattern by now. This whole run, I get stumped by the gym puzzles and these mazes. I love how I'm strategic enough to pull off Charmander learning Flamethrower 4 levels early, but can't seem to figure out these simple boulder pushing puzzles. It is what it is. Anyway, I finished Victory Road. Our Pidgeotto finally evolves into a Pidgeot, and we make it to the Indigo Plateau. Before I walk into the Elite Four, I do a quick inventory check. And this moment reminded me of a rule that I set way back in the start. It hasn't come up much yet because it hasn't really mattered, but I'm not using any items in battle. I only use items outside of battle. I figured because Ash didn't use any items in the show during battle, I couldn't either. It's just a fun little extra challenge. Also do a quick team check before we go in. Pidgeot at level 37, Tauros at 43, Charizard at 44, Kingler at 45, Pikachu at 46, Muck at 41. This is Ash's team, the best I can do in a red version, fully complete. And one thing I haven't talked about yet is the money in the game. It's very finite in red. Because remember, in Gen 1, you can't refight trainers, so there's a hard ceiling on cash in this game. So I have to be cautious about the items I'm buying before going into the Elite Four, especially with my no items in battle rule. Just remember that, because it's definitely going to come into play later. First up, we have Lori Lee. And right away, I can feel that I'm desperately underleveled here. I lead off with Pikachu, obviously start with my electric type against the water type that she has. She sends out a Dewgong, my strategy obviously being that I have a type advantage here. But my Thunderbolt doesn't even take away half of its health. And Pikachu almost gets knocked out by an Aurora Beam. Then she uses Rest to heal back to full health, and I keep chipping away at it with my electric types. And I barely get away with the knockout with Dewgong. Then Cloyster comes out, and this is a very bulky Pokemon, and Pikachu can't exactly crack through. It knocks Pikachu out. And just like that, most of my type advantage is gone. So I send out Muck, and I figure I'm going to use my Minimize plan. The plan being, I'll hit Minimize a bunch of times, hit it with a Toxic, and just avoid attacks, and let their health tick down from the Toxic. But that plan falls apart very quickly. Cloyster knocks out my Muck. I send in Tauros to use Earthquake, and that takes Cloyster out. Then she sends out a 54 Slowbro, another bulky Pokemon. I whittle it away and knock it out. Then she sends out Jinx. I hit it with 2 Body Slams to knock Jink out. And she finally sends out Lapras, another bulky Pokemon. I get kind of jealous because I decided not to use Lapras in this game. Even though Ash does have a Lapras in the Orange Islands episodes, I told myself I couldn't use Lapras in this run because it's not technically Season 1 of the anime. But Lapras takes out my Tauros. I send out Pidgeot that's way underleveled. I try to fly up, but she hits me with the Blizzard and knocks me out. So I decide to send out Kingler, hits me with the Body Slam, and then she hits me with the Confuse Ray, and I can barely get any attacks off on her. I decide I'm going to just roll the dice and try Guillotine, but that completely whiffs. So I send out my final Pokemon Charizard. I get a crit with Slash, but then she hits me with the Blizzard and knocks out my Charizard. I lost. My very first attempt ends up in a wipe. It's my second death of the whole run. I think to myself, okay, maybe I just got a little unlucky there. I'm going to have to actually wake up and start thinking some strategy here and start trying and thinking about the matchups and types. So I reload and go again. I eventually find a way to beat Laurie, but then Bruno walls me. His Machamp is extremely strong. And I keep doing runs over and over again. I eventually get past Lori Lee and Bruno, but then I get to Agatha, and she has a level 60 Gengar, just completely wipes the floor with me. The level difference is massive, obviously, there. I even figure out a way to make it past Agatha and make it all the way to Lance, but he's got a monster of a team, too. The Dragon team is extremely overpowered. I can barely scratch any of his Pokemon. So I just keep racking up the deaths over and over again against the Elite Four. And the more I keep losing over and over again, I keep thinking my team is just severely underleveled to even do this. But the more important thing is I'm running out of money. And I built a little bit of a trap here for myself. Because to get through all 4 straight fights, I'm going to need items to heal between them to truly do this. And items cost money, and the money is finite. So every failed run burns through the potions I can't technically fully replace. I keep thinking to myself, I actually might blow this now. I kind of put a clock on this run. There's a chance that I might run dry of money, and this run is just kind of over. So I retooled a bit, I swapped some moves around, I tried to optimize the team and went back in. Made it all the way to Lance and got crushed again, and I barely have any money left. I have 7 deaths to the Elite Four now. And I've been at this for a couple of hours. And I'd never thought this one time during the whole run because I was having so much fun, but I actually thought to myself, maybe this is it. Maybe this is where my Ash run gets stuck. I thought to myself, I had a really fun journey. I got all 8 badges, but maybe just I couldn't make it past this Elite Four. And I reflected back a little more. I told myself I had a lot of fun, but I'm spending too many hours on stream, and I didn't think I was going to be able to pull this off. The journey had been incredible. It really brought me back to a special place in time. And I thought to myself, in season 1 of the show, Ash didn't become the champion of Kanto. So I powered down the game, and I quit. I put this one aside. No happy ending here. I quit. Is what I would have said if I wasn't a seasoned gamer. Did you really think I'd quit? I know a lot of you watch me and think of me as the nostalgia guy. I know a lot of you are here for the memories, the wrap-ups, and reflecting on old games. I get that. But did you really think that Hidden Saves was a complete noob? Did you really think I was just going to shut off the game and quit? Think about it. I left a trail of breadcrumbs through this whole video. I crawled through the rock tunnel in the dark just to keep Flash off my Pikachu. I purposely held back the evolution of Charizard, one of the most beloved Pokemon in the game, just to get Flamethrower 4 levels early. I sat in the Safari Zone for close to 7 hours just to catch that bull. I made a whole video on it. Did you really think I was going to power down and walk away here? I'll admit it, I'm not the most skilled gamer. I mangle terminology. I forget things, I mispronounce things. You guys definitely remind me of that in the comments all the time. But I'll tell you one thing. Hidden Saves is stubborn and resourceful. So no, I didn't quit. I walked around the entire map and tracked down every trainer that I hadn't beaten in the game yet for the extra cash. I hit all the spots that I accidentally skipped, like the power plant, just to grab items in there to sell. I took inventory of every TM I had and the ones I wasn't going to use and sold them, and sold every other item I wasn't going to use as well. And another thing, I did a little bit of math and I found out super potions cost 700, while the fresh water in the vending machine in Celadon cost 200. They heal for the exact same, 50. So I sat there and bought 99 fresh waters instead, because it's an identical heal item, but it's 3 times cheaper. So my Pokemon were going to be extremely well hydrated, and I just saved a fortune by doing this. So no, I didn't quit. I dug deep, I refilled my water war chest, I retooled my team to optimize their moves, and now I'm set. One more crack, one final run at the Elite Four to become the champion of Kanto. So all that extra work that I put in, tracking out all those trainers, I got a little bit of extra cash, and my team got a few extra levels along the way. Nothing crazy, they're not over-leveled or anything like that, they just gave me a little bit of breathing room so I could stay competitive. And this time, I was completely locked in. I had my strategy set, my moves optimized, I got that war chest full of fresh water, and I'm ready to take on the Elite Four for a final time. Lori Lee's up first. Pikachu opens up and takes out 2 of her Pokemon right off the bat. Then I swap in Muck, and I get 5 minimize off this time, so he's actually going to start dodging attacks. And I hit the rest of her Pokemon with Toxic. And Muck helps sweep the rest of her team with this strategy. Bust out my fresh water, heal everybody up, and I'm on to Bruno. And at Bruno, this is going to be the Kingler show. He's an absolute powerhouse now. He one-shots Onix, freezes both Hitmons, and finally gets him a champ, and hit him with a couple ice beams, and he's done. Kingler sweeps Bruno's entire team. Fresh water everybody up again to fully heal, and Agatha's next. I lead off with Tauros. He handles Gengar pretty easily. I pivot over to Pikachu for the Golbat type advantage. Couple Thunderbolts take Golbat out. I swap Tauros back in. He Earthquakes the Haunter. Then she sends out Arbok. 2 Earthquakes take out Arbok. Then she sends out her ace, her level 60 Gengar. This is the guy who wiped me many runs before this time, but Earthquake is super effective. She hits me with a Confuse Ray, and I'm hanging in by a thread here. Then instead of knocking out Tauros, she uses Dream Eater, Gotta love the Gen 1 RNG like this. But hey, I'll take it. I come out of confusion. I hit an earthquake, and Agatha's down. Heal everybody up again with the water. Coming in clutch here. Playing Vending Machine Simulator earlier definitely helped me out. Then we got Lance. And this is where the no item rule has killed me before, but it's time to take him out. I start off with my Pikachu versus Gyarados. Thunderbolt nearly takes it out, and I get a Paralyze off, but of course he uses the Hyper Potion, and it heals Gyarados back up to full. Second Thunderbolt hits him again, and the Paralyze sticks this time, and I knock him out. Paralyze sticks this time, so he misses a turn, and I hit him with a second Thunderbolt and knock him out. Then I go to my Muck strategy early here. I get 5 minimizes off, so nothing can touch me once again. I hit Toxic on both Dragonairs to take them out, and just simply sit back. He sends out Aerodactyl. It keeps missing because I'm so minimized. And then Toxic and Sludge just chips away at him. Then he sends out his ace, his level 62 Dragonite. This was the beast I could never get past here, but I've got my Toxic strategy in full effect now. I just chip it with Sludge, let the poisons tick, and he can't do anything. I down all of the Elite Four. But if you played this game before, you know the Elite Four isn't the end. There's one final test, and that's my final showdown with Gary. One last time. And here's the thing, I actually never made it this far. Every other run, the Elite Four just knocked me out before I could reach him. So this is my first showdown with Gary. And his team is a monster. All 6 Pokemon are extremely overleveled. He opens up with a level 61 Pidgeot against my Pikachu. I get a super effective Thunderbolt off on it, but it only does barely half damage. That's how underleveled I am right now. Takes 3 Thunderbolts, but Pikachu grinds him down. Then he sends out his level 59 Alakazam, and I switch Tauros in, trying to use my normal attack strategy. But he crits me with Psywave, and he one-shots me. Not ideal. One of my stars is now gone. So I send out Charizard, and I get a Slash crit on him, but of course he uses that cheap move of Recover. Then his Psychic nearly drops Charizard, but he barely hangs on, and I get a second Slash off, and Alakazam's down. Next takes on Rhydon, and I decided to use Flamethrower, but I definitely fumbled up the type matchup here, because my thought is maybe I can get a burn on it, and I'm going to just sack Charizard, and hopefully I can just maybe get the status effect on him, because this Rhydon is pretty strong. I'm able to get Rhydon down with a few not very effective Flamethrowers. Then comes in Arcanine. He is a beast, but I swap in Kingler, and he tanks a couple of the takedowns, and I get 2 Surfs in, and that does the trick, and knock him out. Then he sends out his level 3 Executor. I send back in Charizard for the type advantage, get 1 Flamethrower in, but he puts him to sleep and then uses Stomp to knock him out. So there goes my Fire type, but I remember that Muck has a Fire Blast, so I send Muck out. It lands one, but then Muck gets put to sleep too. But the burns tick down, because we got a burn off an Executor. His Executor goes down while my Muck's asleep. And then Gary sends out his ace, his level 65 Blastoise. And it starts dismantling what's left of my team. While Muck's asleep, a huge Blizzard Shunt knocks him down, and then he hits me with the Hydro Pump that knocks me out for good. I throw my Pidgeot out there, hoping I can pull off my old Sand Attack trick. But Blastoise hits me with the Blizzard, and it's super effective, and it one-shots him. Now I've got a half-health Kingler and a half-health Pikachu left, and that's it. The whole run is hinging on my next couple moves here. So I send Kingler in, and I make the mistake for using an Ice Beam, trying to get a freeze off. I got really greedy here, but it's not that effective. Then I hit it with a Strength and a Strength, chipping him a little bit, but he's able to hit me with a couple bites and knock Kingler out. And then it comes down to a level 51 Pikachu below half health against the level 65 Blastoise. 14 levels under, 1 Pokemon left on each side, the entire run, every gym, every grind, all the deaths, me almost quitting, all of it comes down to the next couple turns here. And I take my time here because I'm kind of panicking, thinking if Blastoise is going to go first, but I have to think that Pikachu is going to outspeed it. But Pikachu is faster, and I hit Thunderbolt and Prey. And luckily, Pikachu goes first, and it crits. Blastoise goes down. My Pikachu, my last Pokemon, the one I never evolved, the one that feels like he's made out of glass, the star of the show, beats Gary. And I just really need to sit with what just happened, because this is the whole moment that this whole video is kind of built on. I couldn't have scripted any better. Pikachu is always the hero, and he's the face of the franchise in the show. And here I am role-playing as Ash 30 years later, doing an Ash run, left with my final Pokemon at half health, and of course it's Pikachu. And he's the one that saves the day, just like he always did in the show. It's kind of incredible. A moment like this is exactly how I dreamed up these runs going. I walk into the next room, and I enter Ash's team into the Hall of Fame. After 30 years, I completed the Ash run, and now am the champion of Kanto. As I reflect back on this journey, I thought about when I was a kid, and how I never actually finished an Ash run. I'd always try, I'd start one, I'd catch a few of the right Pokemon, but for some reason or another, they'd just fall apart, and I'd drift back to playing another way. So going back and actually finishing it 30 years later closed some strange loop that I didn't even know was still open for me. And here's the part that I didn't expect. This run almost fell apart too, right at the end when I was battling the Elite Four. I know I was joking about it, but it brought back some of the same feelings that I had when I was a kid. That feeling of giving up and not completing the run. I was sitting there with no money, a team that was underpowered. I was banging my head against the wall. I was dying over and over again on a stream. I was hitting a similar wall that I hit all those years ago. And the only difference between me now and back then is that this time, I decided not to walk away. Because what I learned from this run is that it's not about the team being bad. The team was secretly amazing. It was special in its own way. You just had to find a way to win. This team was not optimal by modern standards. It's actually kind of awkward, but it made me use and learn Pokemon and think about strategies that I hadn't done before. Especially with Pokemon like Krabby and Muck. I spent hours hunting a Tauros at something I'd never caught before. I heard that he was good, but I never expected him to be as good as he was. And there were some emotional moments along the way too, obviously wrapped up in nostalgia. But to do it Ash's way, you had to get attached to some Pokemon like Butterfree and Primeape, and then let them go. So while they're not in the Hall of Fame photo at the end here, they're absolutely a part of this run. And there were a few times throughout this run where the game just kind of handed me special moments and let Pikachu shine and be the hero, just like in the show. I love that we kept him unevolved in his Pikachu form, and still found a way to win. It was kind of poetic the way he beat Surge early on, and how he was the last Pokemon left standing against Gary's overpowered Blastoise at the very end. Of course it was Pikachu that saved the day. What this run really gave to me again was that feeling of being a kid. I didn't have this ultra-optimized team, it was just a personal journey. And it brought back a ton of magic from that special era in gaming. It was such a special place in time that I feel is kind of forgotten now. Because somewhere along the way, Pokemon has become extremely optimized. You've got the competitive scene, people hunting for meta teams, perfect IVs, and that's fine. I'm happy how the game has grown over the years. But back when Pokemon first came out, when nobody knew anything, and you just picked a Pokemon team just because they looked cool, or because you were copying the show, or because of some rumor you heard from a friend at school, you didn't have these perfect optimal teams, you just kind of made your own team. And that's the thing I actually miss. That era of Pokemania. That early internet era where you had just a little bit of tech, but not too much. You had to dig for your own information, you had to actually talk to people, you had to go pick up and read a strategy guide. Your feed wasn't blasted with fully optimized strategies and tips and tricks. You actually had to sit there and think and really use your imagination. And one of the ways I used my imagination back in the day was pretending to be Ash from the show. That's what was so special. You got to play the game your own way, however you wanted, in your own imagination. There was no right or wrong way to do it. So if you ever sat there playing Pokemon Red and Blue, trying to build Ash's team, trying to be the very best like no one ever was, you probably had a hidden save of your own. This was mine. This is Hidden Saves, a channel about unlocking old memories and figuring out why some games just stuck with us. If this one unlocks something for you, feel free to hit subscribe or drop a comment, and let me know what forgotten memory we should dig up next. Catch you in the next one.